Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. Going back to the Apex this week, we got UFC Vegas 103, headlined by flyweight Manel Kape taking on Asu ALMABAYEV. 12 total fights for us to get into. Go ahead and recap last week where I did finish up 3.95 units, bet almost every single underdog on the card. Came through with Rob Font, with Ion Cutelaba, Ricky Simone, and Austin Vanderford. And then the Cejudo points handicap, something I added late, and being only a 3-round fight, hit with ease. And then missed out on Brendan Allen and Andre Feely, which I'm a little pissed off with the fight IQ displayed there. Rafael Sequeira, another first-round knockout loss. And, man, Nick Klein lands that spinning elbow, gets that takedown. I'm absolutely freaking out, holding a plus 800. Unfortunately, doesn't come through. But, yeah, almost a 4-unit night, betting on almost all plus money, so can't hate it. And I know I looked at your card. Green's green, so let you recap it. Get into this week, man.
Yeah, green's green, man. I mean, shoot, I had a full unit on Nick Klein, and whenever he hit that, bro, I was also up out of my seat, just screaming at the television.
Oh, no.
I don't know. That, like I said, that's how I want my plus 800s to fight. So
Yeah.
I really do. I make that bet again.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And, if I do it 8 times, I should come out profitable. Brendan Allen, yeah, same thing. I was on Melsik Bagdasaryan. That was my worst bet of the night, I think.
Yes, same here.
Yeah.
But it was a really slow-paced fight prior to that. So, Melsik was kind of getting the fight he wanted, despite maybe not winning it.
Right. And, it's not going to be against Bryce Mitchell, but Gene Silva's fade time is coming, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's quite as good as what people want to make him out to be.
I said I'll get him one day. I'm 0-3 fading him so far.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's not going to be Bryce Mitchell either. So, got to wait one more. And then had Bagdasaryan plus 7.5. That didn't hit. And then my late addition was Nursultan Ruzaboya versus Kaneko, fight-ins by TKO at plus money. I thought about putting 2 units on it, and I should have in hindsight, but is what it is. It still came out 0.10 positive and 2% ROI. So, yeah, green is green. I'm not complaining about it at all, but damn, it could have been a huge night. Let's see. Moving on to the first fight of this card. The card in general a little bit weak, and we start pretty weak. First fight of the night, flyweight division, Montana De La Rosa taking on Luana Carolina. This is not a fight that I want to get involved with. Montana De La Rosa, it certainly looks like her best days are behind her, and she's kind of approaching a 500 record. She gets the split win over Andrea Lee in her last time out, which shows she does still have a little bit left in the tank. Luana Carolina doesn't bring much to the table other than her just being a little bit bigger woman. If I was confident that Montana De La Rosa was going to be able to secure takedowns, I'd be more interested in betting her as a dog. But, as many times as Luana Carolina has been taken down in her UFC career, she does a decent job of getting back up to the feet. I looked at the Lupi Godinez fight, and, Lupi was able to take her down twice, but she stuffed 13 of the 15 takedowns that Lupi threw at her. And truth be told, I'm not that high on Montana De La Rosa right now. She's 30 years old, and I haven't felt like she's progressing in her career. And this is just a low-level women's fight where it's a dog or pass, but it's just not one that I want to get involved with. So I just can't. I'll take Montana De La Rosa for the sake of this, but it's not with a lot of conviction.
Feel a little bit more confident on the Montana De La Rosa side. I truth be told, even if this plays out at striking range, I don't even really make De La Rosa plus 115 underdog. I think it's close on the feet, but I think if Montana comes out here with even close to an intelligent game plan, she's going to wrestle here, man. I think she finds her takedowns easy. Luana Carolina's been taken down in her last 7 UFC fights, offers pretty much next to nothing off her back. You see her get knee barred, embarrassed on the mat by Lipsky, and Montana just absolutely steamrolled Lipsky on the mat. I know MMA math doesn't always add up, but to me, hanging plus 115 on a girl who I think has one of the more clear paths to victory on the whole entire card. It's just a 0.5 unit shot for me because I don't want to get involved in low-level women's MMA. But I think De La Rosa is the one who, in hindsight, could come out here and look the big favorite. So going to pick Montana De La Rosa. Got a small play on her to start as well. Moving up the card, staying in the men's flyweight division is Charles Johnson versus Ramazan Timirov. Fight I think should be much higher up on the card. Super excited for this one. And, line's been all over the place. It's kind of a pick 'em. I've seen Timirov up to -135 on DraftKings, now to +105 on the same book. When I saw Charles Johnson at like +110, I kind of considered it. He's fought the way better UFC competition. He's going to have a big height and reach advantage. I feel like round 3, 9 out of 10 times is probably going to go to Charles Johnson in this type of fight. The volume numbers are going to be there, and he's proven to be a pretty good anti-grappler. Well, he makes you work hard for the takedowns. He's hard to submit. When you do wrestle him, you better be prepared to land 10 plus takedowns in these fights. And something I don't know if Timirov has a gas tank and the ability to do. My biggest issue though is, I think Johnson deserved a much higher profile fight than this. So I'm kind of wondering how he gets himself motivated for one of the newcomers with not a big name. And he's also one of these guys that starts super slow and Timirov starts super fast. Timirov's being much smaller is a whole lot faster, hits a whole lot harder. And I do think early on in this fight, Johnson's probably going to be a step behind, trying to get his reads, trying to deal with the speed, with the power, probably getting hurt in round 1 as well. So ultimately with the line all over the place, pre-fight staying off. But, if Johnson's still there in 2 and 3, looks fresh, if Timirov's slowing down, I think Johnson's one of the better live betting spots you could look at this card. So I'm going to take Johnson. Squeaking out a decision. It's the Azat Maxim fight that I kind of keep going back to. Azat Maxim hurt him numerous times in the first round and just wasn't able to keep that pace up. And Johnson came back on him and could see something similar here. So I like Johnson via close decision.
I think the perfect way to sum this up is Charles Johnson. If this is a 5-round fight, this is a max bet for Charles Johnson, but It's not. And like you said, he's shown it plenty of times. This is the perfect style of opponent for him to lose moments in, especially early in the fight. And those just sit heavier on the judges' minds whenever they're going to the scorecards. This is a underdog or pass fight. It's probably going to be squeaky. I feel similar to the first fight where it's like there's not going to be a super clear winner no matter how it goes. So it's just a fight that I'd prefer to back off. And I think the line tells you exactly that, So layoff fight for me. But yeah, hell, I'm rooting for Charles Johnson. I'd love for him to finally get a 5-round fight because he's, in my opinion, earned it at this point. But it's not going to be this one. And unfortunately, this one's kind of poised to have him lose yet another split decision here. Moving up the card, staying in the 125 division, back to the women's. Another pretty low-level fight, at least at this point in their careers. We got Andrea KGB Lee taking on JJ Aldridge. Both, staple just outside the top 15 of the division for their entire career, more or less. Andrea Lee has slipped into the top 15 a few times, but she's approaching that 500 record fighter. And again, just super inconsistent. And at this point in her career, after losing 5 in a row, I know she's fighting decent competition, but it's just impossible for me to get on her. JJ Aldridge, I think her biggest issue in MMA is the ability to pull away from fights. She's constantly making it very close. And if she's not going to push a grappling pace, there's a world where Andrea Lee is able to touch her for 15 minutes and win on the judges' scorecards. But this is just, yet again, not a fight that I really want to get involved with. I think JJ Aldridge, at this point in her career, still has a little bit more left to offer than Andrea Lee, which is why I'm picking her. But again, not with a lot of conviction. And it's going to be a while before I get to any fights where I feel great about anything. This is a layoff fight for me. JJ Aldridge is the pick. Yeah.
Got a half unit on Andrea Lee plus 165. I'm convinced that if you throw a little bit on her and Montana, you're going to come out profiting. I think one of these girls are going to come through. To me, Aldridge, decent boxer on the inside. She's got some sharp hands for women, but not a lot to her game. Not good cardio. You talked about not being able to really separate in your fights. No offensive grappling. She's also the smaller fighter here. I do think that Lee competes with a lot of girls very well on the feet. I think she's going to have the volume here. She's way more versatile, the one throwing kicks and everything. And I hate that it's an L5. I'm probably riding with her what could be her absolute last fight, her retirement fight. But the competition that she's fought in those last 5 fights, hands are, just leaps and bounds better than a JJ Aldrich. And she's in two of those arguably deserved to get her hand raised. So at the end of the day, man, I've seen JJ lose to Lipsky, to Sabina Mazo. Even on the L5 at 37, I think Andrea Lee's better than that, So I think she's going to give me a much better fight than the plus 165 indicates. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I did. Well, yeah, I did. It's just the two fights before her last two losses before the 5L streak against Roxanne Modaffari and Lauren Murphy is really, I think, what pushed me over the edge to not get involved in this fight, because the points that you make are completely true, man. Like I think if she has all the tools where she could win this one, but damn, those are some tough losses to look back on. And it's just, I can't even get myself to play her.
I feel you. Moving on to a fight that I do think should spice it up a little bit. Lucas Almeida, Danny Silva. I think this is a car crash. Should be a banger from the get-go. Kind of looking at the under 2.5 minus 130. Maybe it doesn't go the distance price if one of our domestic books still hangs a good number out there. As far as the side goes, I'm not really in love with like minus 2+, or 2XX on Danny Silva, but I do think he's probably the warranted favorite here. 6 years younger. To me, he seems much more durable. I think he's got a big edge in the gas tank. I do think if anybody's got grappling upside, it's going to be the Danny Silva one here. My issue with Danny Silva is the dude has zero striking defense. He's there to be hit. And Almeida is a very solid striker, man. He's willing to sit down on his punches, and I do think he's going to have his moments here. Danny Silva is kind of similar to like a Timothy Kwamba. Truth be told, I think they're kind of similar. I think Danny Silva just might have a little bit more grappling in the back pocket to go to it if he needs. And I do feel like if this slips into rounds 2 and 3, late into 2, that we're going to see the pace and things of Silva start to get the job done. So I think I'm on the Danny Silva side. I think he gets the finish in rounds 2 or 3. Looking at some violence here, man. This is a good fight.
Yeah, I love the violence call out. I'm trying to check one thing real quick. Let's see. Yeah, so we don't have props out for that fight. Yeah. But man, I think a really sneaky play is the Lucas Almeida by knockout, because you talked about it, man. Danny Silva looked awful entering the pocket, shooting for the takedowns. He left himself exposed a lot, and he was lucky that he was fighting somebody in Josh Kulabau who doesn't really pack much power. Right. That's not the case for Lucas Almeida. We've only got to see it once in his debut fight against Trezano, but my dude bangs. And if Danny Silva, and not only that, but Lucas keeps his power into the later rounds. The Trezano fight, he knocks him out in the 3rd round. And I think once he starts figuring out the entries of Danny Silva, if he does, leave himself exposed, Almeida's going to be liable to catch him and knock him out. And I think that price tag is going to be sitting upwards of plus 400, 450, something like that. So that's kind of how I'd be looking at it, if not just taking the under. But you're still having to pay juice for featherweights, which is not my favorite for unders. So that's going to get me to lay off. And if I do touch it, it's probably just going to be Almeida by a TKO with a sprinkle. Moving down a weight class, bantamweights, Douglas Silva de Andrade taking on John Castaneda. We had talked a little bit about this one before we started the podcast. This is one of the only spots that I really like, and it's kind of going against the grain. The under 2.5 is like plus 220, something like that. I think the fight doesn't go to decision is still plus 200, something like that. And I think that's the move, man. The last time I saw Douglas Silva de Andrade out there against Miles Johns, man, he looked 38 years old. He really did. I mean, outside of his physical appearance, the way he moved, the way he reacted to things, it just wasn't what I like to see at 135 pounds. And Miles Johns, although he is known for landing some power shots, I don't think he's crisp enough to really capitalize on the poor entries of Douglas Silva de Andrade. I think Castaneda is that guy. I think Castaneda does have a little bit crisper striking. He will make Douglas de Silva de Andrade pay for those entries. And then on top of it, Andrade is liable to land that overhand right, that shovel uppercut, or crank on a submission. Like, there's multiple ways I could see each guy winning by finish, and we're getting an awesome price tag for it. So that's certainly how I'm looking to attack this fight. Castaneda is the pick, though. I think that he's got a lot more upside in his career right now. He's a lot crisper, but it's MMA. Everybody's liable to get caught, and I love betting unders where I can see both guys getting the finish.
Yeah, Andrade is kind of got, he's got power to change the fight. I think he's a pretty solid, anti-grappler, keeping fights up on the feet. And if he's the better striker than you, he's going to win the fight. I just honestly feel like John Castaneda kind of has his number everywhere, man. I feel like he could be the one that has the offensive grappling, just being the one that's younger, find his way on top, and really on the feet. You referenced it with the Miles Jones fight, saying Miles, not really as crisp. I 100% agree. And Miles doesn't throw anywhere near the volume of Castaneda as well. And I think that volume is what, could get to somebody who's 38 years old, slowing down, something just like the attrition of all the punches. Because Douglas is a durable dude. He's not one of these guys who's ever going out with one shot. But when you got a guy much younger in front of you with the pace, the pressure, and the volume, I do think that could get to it. So you've opened my eyes a little bit more to the under. I kind of considered Castaneda decision as something I felt pretty comfortable about. But, open my eyes a little bit more considering the under there because I could see it happening.
One more thing to add. He's 4 months away from turning 40 years old at 135 pounds. And, he's at this point in his career, he's now fought once a year for the last 3 years. And I think in his last time out, he looked the worst out of those 3 years. So I do think that there's a steady decline. Just touching on that one more, I think that that's the spot right there.
Taking a step up to men's featherweight, Ricardo Ramos taking on Chepe Mariscal. I get Chepe's 4-0 in the UFC, man. Ricardo Ramos probably should be on the L3. I think the bet you lost in Josh Kulabau.
Bro.
Ramos is I can't even talk about Brendan Allen or Fluffy or Andre Feely. I can't even talk about it. That was, had him dead to right, slips on a kick, gets his back taken, loses. It was piss poor performance from Josh Kulabau. Here's the thing, man. I think Ramos has a little bit of quit in him. I don't think Chepe has any quit in him. And the later this fight goes, Chepe's got an incredible gas tank, and I think he thrives in a firefight somewhere that I don't think I can trust Ramos. But when you see Chepe as a dog in 3 of his first 4 UFC fights, and now he's priced at 85%, it's little, I kind of want to look at the Ramos side. I get it. He doesn't have that dog in him. He taps in majority of his losses, but I do think he might be a little more technical, both on the feet and in the mat. And at the end of the day, you've already mentioned it. How many men's featherweight fights hit the scorecards, and if he gets a back take like he did in the Kulabau fight for 2 minutes, does he get the round? I don't know, man. So, I think there's plenty of red flags that could keep me from pulling the trigger by Saturday, but clearly dog or pass to me, man. I don't hate a shot on Ricardo Ramos.
Shoot, dude. Ricardo Ramos, very similar to Claudio Puelles, right? Like that's what I think that's a perfect comparison to him. And I think back to that Claudio Puelles versus Dan Hooker fight. I was on Hooker huge in that fight. I really think that this is liable to just be an absolute beatdown. Sure, there are chances that this goes to the scorecards if Ricardo can positionally find some, to the back, extend rounds, everything else. But while it's on the feet, Chepe's so willing to engage that I think he melts him, and right now the under 2.5 is -140. I don't like that. I like Chepe inside the distance at plus money. Yeah. And you're bringing a -440 down to plus money. And I really think that he wins inside the distance pretty often. Just because I do think he's a little bit more, damage oriented than Josh Kulabau. And when he smells blood, I think he's going to go in for that finish. And so the -440, turn it into plus money with the inside the distance play. That'd be how I bet this fight. But even then, I'm not putting more than a unit on that. It's just the best way I could look at approaching this. Because you're right, Chepe hasn't necessarily earned a 5-1 favorite against anybody in the UFC. But, I think that this is his fight to lose. Let's see. Moving up the card, the prelim headliner, Austin Lane taking on Mario Pinto. Man, Austin Lane, he comes out against Robelis Despain last time out, gets the win, kind of stops Despain had already been stopped once as far as his hype train. But he's able to do it again. And by God, if the UFC isn't punishing him yet again, man, they just don't like Austin Lane. I mean, there are some winnable fights for him in the division, and they just have yet to match him up with one.
Right.
Even the Robelis Despain fight, like, it's a tough one, man. I'd probably still – I don't know, man. Despain sucks. But Mario Pinto, a little bit different. One thing I don't like about him, they talked about it in the Contender Series, how big he is, how long he is. Truthfully, I think dude's a light heavyweight. He just needs to get the eating under control, get the weight down. I think that he'd have a better career at light heavyweight. But for now, I mean, as long as he's scraping the bottom of the barrel of heavyweight, he's going to put together some pretty decent wins. One thing I did like about him on the Contender Series is he's not, like completely finish oriented. He's willing to kind of pick you apart over the course of 3 rounds. And although we didn't get to see it, it's the crispness of his boxing, the length that he has, that he's willing to rely on to get him to the final bell. And at 9-0, like, there might be a learning experience round that happens here against Austin Lane, but I do think that he comes on top more often than not. Not somebody I'm trying to get behind. I don't even know what the line is, but minus 550. Not somebody I'm trying to get on or get behind in his UFC debut. But yeah, I think he wins the fight. I think that the overs in this fight are probably where I'd look to play it, although it's tight butthole the whole time.
Yeah.
Not what I want to play. But if the over 1.5 is even money, I mean, honestly, I think that Pinto is coming off of a knockout that was a little bit flash knockout. It didn't really paint the whole picture of his game. And I think we could probably see it extend a little bit this time. So give me the over 1.5 here. I do think that Pinto wins.
Yeah, if Austin Lane gets his game going, probably slips over that 1.5 pretty easily. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I'd never laid this price on a debuting heavyweight with the competition level that Pinto has. He's still super unproven to me, but man, you kind of talked on it. They just don't like Austin Lane. I guess they are constantly putting him in what would be set up fights for the other prospect to win. And I think they've done the same thing here. So I like Pinto's ability to keep it standing, and I think he's the much better striker. And I haven't seen much to be able to trust the chin of Austin Lane. So, I'm a little definitely tight butthole the whole time if you play that over. I kind of do think Mario Pinto finds the late first round knockout, though. Kicking off the main card, absolute banger of a fight. Danny Barlow taking on Sam Patterson. Honestly, dude, if Sam Patterson gets the fight down to the ground, I'm super worried if I'm betting Danny Barlow here. I think Sam Patterson is a very, very legit grappler. Very good jiu-jitsu. If he gets on top, I don't know if Barlow's getting up. And if he gets to the back, I think Barlow might get submitted, man. And I like Barlow. I think Barlow is a fantastic prospect. The hardware, athleticism, footwork power. I mean, there's so many things that this guy has, advantages over everybody. I think he's a solid prospect. I don't love the line, and I've seen times where he can be a little bit exploited on the back when he's on his back. So I also don't really trust the chin of Patterson not to get touched here. So I kind of told you I was looking at the under 1.5 at minus 120. I think in 7.5 minutes Barlow submitted or Patterson's knocked out. So feels kind of binary to me, but I think we see a finish here.
Yeah, so I don't feel that the price tag is warranted for Danny Barlow. Yes, he's 9-0, but you look at the fights that he has been involved with under the UFC banner. They're matchmates in heaven, especially looking back on them. Josh Quinlan's now a near 500 fighter. Veretinikov did not have a great showing last week.
Right.
And you talked about the danger that Sam Patterson brings to the table, and I think that that's enough to justify a dog play or look at that under. But it's, just not a fighter I want to put my money behind, man. Like again and again and again on this card, it's just not fighters that I'm too comfortable with backing. This is strictly a dog or pass fight for me, though, and I think that Barlow's time is coming. It just might not be against Sam Patterson here. And plus, like, when do you want to trust the grappling of anybody coming from Europe, dude? It's just got red flags all over it for me, so it's a layoff for me. But yeah, dog or pass if I'm looking at this card as well. William Gomes taking on Haider Emil at 145 pounds. Haider Emil 10-0 now. He's coming off of that win over Jung Young Lee. We were at a cabin whenever that happened. I think you remember that, right?
Yeah.
This is man. I think this has Gomez written all over it. I don't like very many French fighters. He is the exception. He's not the most exciting, but I do think that he has a lot of skills that could take him really far in this division. He offers a really tough matchup for people. And he's kind of like my 145 Mateusz Nicolau. Like, man, he's just so defensively sound. He makes fighters kind of come out of their comfort zone just to be able to land anything on him. And because he's so tall in the division and long, it forces them, like they have to try and close. They have to try and close those distances. In his last fight against Joe Anderson Brito, he's not going to fight very many more explosive guys than him. And, I think that's mostly what Hyder Emil brings to the table. Gomes has seemingly shown a pretty good chin to me as well. So barring, a knockout, which I don't think he's going to get into a slugfest, I think he walks away with this one pretty easily. And he's sitting under -2 to -200. He's like 190s. I think that's a decent enough price to put him in a parlay. It's not my favorite parlay because he's probably going to win this by decision. But him and then another one coming up, I'm thinking about putting together.
Yeah, man. I kind of said the same thing. Gomes is one of these guys who's kind of hard to bet at chalk because he's not very dangerous. And when he wins, it's by decision. And you just kind of know one day he could potentially get robbed. Here's another thing I don't like. It's a small cage, I like William Gomes' game when it's in a big cage. I think he would enjoy the much more room to work. And I agree. It kind of does feel like a step back, even in talent-wise for me from a Joe Anderson Brito, especially from a power standpoint. But here's the thing. I think Joe Anderson Brito kind of got frustrated at range and accepted that. Hyder Emil, dude fights at a ridiculous pace, at least early in the fight. And I think he might be a little bit more willing to bite down on the mouthpiece and make the fight a little bit dirty. But dude, I think he's going to struggle to get on the inside. And anytime he is, I think he's going to be taking damage. You talked about it. Gomes, probably the most defensively sound fighter on the roster that comes to my opinion. Like his defensive stats on the UFC are probably number one. Like the dude just doesn't get hit. And he's very sharp with his strikes. And truth be told, Gomes might be the better grappler of the two, man. I don't know. At least what Emil has shown me is not enough that I think he's going to go out here and have any wrestling success. So, yeah, I don't really like Gomes' style, but if the line comes down any or even where it sits at, I don't hate Gomes as a parlay piece either, man. So glad to hear you on that side with me. Moving on up the card here, man, a fight I'm pretty interested in. Nasrat Haqparast taking on Esteban Ribovics. I said if this fight or if this line stayed above +200 that I was going to get involved, but I'm able to get +230, +240, +240s and things on Nasrat. And I just think the market's overreacting to Ribovics coming off a fight of the year contender, man. I do think the guy's a solid prospect, but he's got zero grappling upside whatsoever. And Nasrat's a pretty durable guy. So to me, this is a close kickboxing affair for 15 minutes where Ribovics might have the power and the volume edge, but man, speed, the technicality, southpaw, I think Nasrat absolutely has his advantages. The competition that he's fought, his durability that he's shown me in the past. When I see Radzhabov beat you, when I see you go life or death with Zellhuber, I don't know how you cover north of 75% here against a veteran like Nasrat in what I think is going to be a kickboxing fight. So I plan to have a small shot on Nasrat, maybe like a 0.75 money line, quarter unit on a decision north of +400. So I think it goes to decision at a super high clip. So I have no problem getting involved with the +240.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it for the same reasons you talked about. For what it's worth, I think that this would Zellhuber's a close one. I don't know, man. I think this probably would be Esteban Ribovics' best win. Now, that might be controversial with the Zellhuber, but still, Nasrat's been in the UFC he's a veteran at this point, I think like almost 15 fights.
Zellhuber was outstruck by Trey Ogden, man. It's like.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. I like I said, truth be told, I think this would 15 minutes of Ribovics right here is going to be more telling than his last 4 fights in the UFC. And this is kind of like put up or shut up fight for him. I think Hack Paras is going to offer a lot of veteran experience and might push him to some limits that we haven't seen. So yeah, I like the underdog shot on Hack Paras simply because he's going to make this fight close, but not really because I see him winning very many spots. It's just I think this is a close fight and we've got a wide line. So dog or pass for me. But yeah, we'll take Hack Paras, just experience to pull through here, and still under 30 years old. So dude should be improving in theory himself. So yeah, give me Hack Paras. I like that. Moving on to the co-main event. I don't think it's going to get beat this year for worst co-main event, man.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Like this is just like bottom of the barrel at 185. Yeah, Cody Brundage taking on Julian Marquez, and I don't have much good to say about either guy. Brundage, man, he goes out there and bangs for like 2.5 minutes and then looks for the first door out, man. Like he's just somebody I personally can't get behind money wise. And then Marquez, on the other hand, like I just saw a video of him coming out about his training and how all of his coaches and training partners would say that he looks like dog shit in the training room. And I don't know why you would say that during fight week. And then while also coming off of 3 knockout losses, it's a tough look. I don't know where he is mentally, but I at least know that he doesn't give up in fights. He just gets flatlined, but he's not giving up, And I think if he can withstand the early barrage that Brundage most likely puts on him, man, I think he takes over more often than not late. Like I've seen him in some dog fights, and dude doesn't give up on himself. And that alone is enough for me to consider taking a shot on him if Cody Brundage keeps getting bet down this week and we see plus money on Marquez. I think that might be the look, but it's probably because this is on the co-main that I feel obligated to make a play on it. I don't think that I'd touch this fight if it's on the prelim. So Marquez is the play, but man, if it's not plus money, it's just a layoff fight.
There's not many worse people you can bet on, like you said, than either one of these two, man. And when you just look at Brundage's UFC run, man, like you lose to Cedriquez Dumas, your only real win is a dude who holds on to an armbar too long and you slam him. Your other 2 wins are like DQs where guys are beating you and you look for a way. I don't know, man. It's comical that he's got a UFC spot, much less a co-main event spot, But I do think he's got so many advantages in this fight, man. Marquez is just bad, like you said, he won't quit on himself. He's tough and he'll push through it. And it's absolutely the truth, but his cardio sucks. His striking defense sucks. His takedown defense is awful. And from what a guy who used to be durable, now he's getting finished in his fights. He's got multiple injury layoffs. I just, earlier in the week, he was a much bigger favorite. So I have no idea how you could ever get to a 65% on Marquez, especially when he could be easily out-wrestled here. When Maki Pitolo shows that you can be out-wrestled. But he also showed you in the Maki Pitolo fight, the Phil Hawes fight, like you said, that dude will come back on you. So I'm equally unsure how you can confidently get money down on Brundage. So I'll probably likely just be passing, enjoying what shouldn't be our co-main event Saturday. Moving on up, man, this is an exciting co-main event or main event for myself. I like both these guys, Manel Kape, Asu Almabayev. Kape's found himself in yet another probably number 1 contender fight again. Hopefully he doesn't find a way to lose this one, miss weight, and not get himself this opportunity. On the Asu Almabayev side, I've been a lot higher on Asu Almabayev than I feel like a large majority of the people have been. I think the guy wrestling is honestly some of the best in the UFC. I really do. I like what I see from him. He's just very one-dimensional. And now that you've reached the top of the division, I do think being so undersized, you're going to need more than just the wrestling. And stylistically, I see people taking underdog shots because stylistically, I guess you could compare it to Makayev in the wrestling, but Makayev's so much longer and so much of a better striker that he was able to actually win moments on the feet and then mix in numerous takedowns. I don't think Asu's going to win a single second on the feet here. I feel like this one, to me, very similar to last week's main event. Asu Almabayev kind of like Henry Cejudo, needs 4 or 5 takedowns in this fight, needs 13+ minutes of control time, because all the moments on the feet are going to be Manel Kape. I do worry about Kape's volume, as he's got a grappler in front of him, but luckily he's got 5 rounds to work because I know he's a slow starter. I've kind of went back and forth on this one a few times because I do think Kape could look a huge favorite on the feet. But I think Asu might just need a couple takedowns, and he covers this plus 200 price tag. So I'm going to keep my hands clean. I'm not going to bet on this fight. I think it's super high level, but I'm gonna side with Manel Kape. I do think he kind of takes over on the feet down the stretch of this fight.
Manel Kape is my second parlay piece. You get like plus 122 with him and Gomez, and
I hate it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I really think that these guys are both gonna look like pretty big favorites once the fight is coming to an end. You touched on like maybe Asu gets some early takedowns, and I think you probably get a better line on Manel Kape after round 1, 2. So for live bettors, I would approach it that way if you're wanting to bet Kape and not wanting to put him in a parlay. But yeah, I think that Asu is going to run out of options at one point, and Manel Kape is just one of these fighters who is built for 5 rounds, man. I don't really have too much more, man. I think he's going to be a whole lot faster. And when he is able to bring this into the later rounds, I think that this is all just made for him. I don't even know. Has Asu been in 5 rounds?
I think he's had a 5-rounder on the regional scene that I saw.
Yeah, all the way back in M1. That's what it was. So I don't know, man. We don't know what he's looked like in the past half decade over the course of 5 rounds. And Manel Kape's somebody that is going to make him work. I think he has a little bit more options to win the fight. And if he can keep it on the feet, he's really going to start pulling away down the stretch. I think he's a crisper fighter. We saw in the Makayev fight. I'm pretty sure he hurt himself really early in that fight.
Yeah, I think he broke his toe or something, right?
Well, his comeback fight against Bruno Silva, he looked like a damn world beater. So right now, 31 years old, he should be peaking. And this is a massive step up for Asu. I think a little too much, too quick for Asu, and I think that this is an easy jump to a title shot for Manel Kape here. So yeah, give me Kape and Gomez and the parlay at plus money. I really like that play, actually, now that I'm talking it out.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all, especially getting plus money on it. That's all 12 fights going down this week. We're back at the Apex for UFC Vegas 103. Last fight card before UFC 313 for Pereira, Magomed Ankalaev, long-awaited light heavyweight strap up for grabs. So ready to dig in those fights. Keep an eye on Twitter for our bets this week. Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys next week.
Peace.